Not everyone gets to qualify for the FIFA World Cup. What do you do if you're a micronation, a disputed territory, a group of people without a recognised state, or a rusty offshore platform off the coast of Essex, but you still want a shot at international football glory? In the mid-2000s, a bunch of football idealists decided to create their own alternative World Cup for the unaffiliated. A rebel World Cup, if you will. This is the story of the national teams that FIFA forgot, the makeshift federations that tried to bring them together, and the parallel universe of international football that they built. But first of all, context. So, how does a country become a FIFA member in the first place? Well, it's not as simple as just loving football and having a half-decent team. FIFA membership is technically open to independent nations, recognised by the international community, usually meaning they're a member of the United Nations. But, as with many things in football, the reality is more blurry. Take the United Kingdom for instance, obviously recognised by the UN, but there's no Team GB, for the most part anyway. Instead, it gets to have 4 separate teams, and that's without counting the overseas territories. Some national teams like Palestine or Kosovo get to be in FIFA despite not having full UN members cards. Meanwhile, the Faroe Islands gets in, while Greenland doesn't, regardless of both being part of Denmark, though the lack of grass in Greenland might not be helping their case. Then there's Monaco, which is a sovereign state recognised by the UN, but isn't in FIFA at all because they'd rather play in France instead. The Vatican has its own league, but doesn't want to bother with the FIFA paperwork. New Caledonia gets in while French Guiana doesn't, though it is part of CONCACAF while being in South America oddly. The Cook Islands, yes, despite it having a population that could comfortably fit into the Den, which would be an odd day out for them. US Virgin Islands, yes. Tuvalu, no. Bermuda, yes. Zanzibar, no. And Montserrat, yes, despite being a font. Got it? Nah, me neither. Fed up with FIFA's exclusivity, politics and confusing eligibility criteria, a group of football outsiders met in a Brussels pub in 2003 to sketch out an alternative. The men present included Luc Misson, the Belgian lawyer famous for winning the Bosman case, Christian Michaelis, a representative of Monaco's Football Federation, and Jean-Luc Kitt, a football researcher. They envisioned a new federation for all teams that didn't fit into the official system. They grandly named it the N.F Board, or New Federations Board, and then got another round in. The New Federations Board was intended to be a home for unrecognised states, stateless peoples, regions and micronations that couldn't get past FIFA's gatekeepers. The ambitions were lofty. They'd organise international matches and even a world championship. What's that? While a novel idea, it wasn't completely original. The International Island Games Association had hosted football tournaments since 1989 for European island nations, territories, dependencies, and Gibraltar, despite it not being an island at all, which is a total stitch-up in my book. The Indian Ocean Island Games had done the same since 1979, but for the Indian Ocean Islands obviously. However, the New Federations Board was the first real attempt to create a truly fake World Cup. Early on, the New Federations Board attracted dozens of curious members. Within months of its founding, the list of applicants swelled dramatically. They range from places you might sympathise with to those that raise an eyebrow. On the serious side, there were cultural and political identities with genuine cause, such as Tibet and Kurdistan. And on the eccentric side, you had members like the Principality of Sealand, essentially a rusting North Sea anti-aircraft platform declaring itself a country, and Ciborga, a tiny Italian hill town with a population of 300 people that likes to pretend it's a sovereign principality. The N.F Board's €1 million idea was the pro-evolution-esque named VIVA World Cup, a version of the World Cup for their member teams. However, despite being the anti-FIFA, it didn't take long for the new federation's biggest stage to become a total farce. The inaugural VIVA World Cup was scheduled for 2006, and was originally supposed to be a 16-team tournament hosted in northern Cyprus. However, the hosts got into a political squabble with the N.F Board leadership before a ball was even kicked. The new Federation's board claimed that officials in northern Cyprus wanted to restrict certain teams from taking part, while Turkish Cypriots claimed the N.F Board wanted too much bloody money. In classic breakaway Federation fashion, the would-be host broke away. Northern Cyprus pulled out of the event at the 11th hour, leaving the N.F Board high and dry. Scrambling to save face and the tournament, the N.F Board relocated the tournament to Hyères in the south of France, with the big or little kickoff due to take place in November 2006. But to add insult to injury, the Cyprus Turkish Football Federation decided to muck about with the new federation's board a little bit more by hosting their very own tournament for unrecognised national teams. They called it the ELF Cup, promised to pay travel expenses for travelling teams, and arranged it to take place at exactly the same time as the VIVA World Cup. Subtle. Teams from as far as Greenland and Zanzibar happily traded in the VIVA World Cup for an all-expenses-paid football holiday. And, perhaps unsurprisingly, the host Northern Cyprus ended up winning the 8-team ELF Cup on home soil. Meanwhile, in France, the inaugural VIVA World Cup was forced to downsize to just 6 teams. The hosts, Occitania, Monaco, not that one, West Papua, Ambazonia, the Romani People national football team, and Sápmi, a team representing the Sámi indigenous people of northern Scandinavia and that sticky outy bit of Russia. This would be whittled down to just a triple threat. After West Papua couldn't get a lift to the south of France, Ambazonia couldn't get the right visas, and the Romani team couldn't find the cash. To call it a contest would have been generous. It was more a series of squash matches. Sápmi won the micro-tournament for micronations after battering Monaco in the final 21-1, in a game that saw 2 penalties, 3 hat-tricks, and 12 different goal scorers. They walked away with the inaugural trophy, which well and truly put Sápmi on the map. Where is it again? Oh, right there. Despite the rocky start, the new Federation's board pressed on with its VIVA World Cup dream. Subsequent editions of the VIVA World Cup were held every year or two, hopping around willing hosts. The second instalment of the tournament took place in Yalivere, up in the Arctic Circle, in July of 2008. Padania won the whole thing to take the prestigious Nelson Mandela Trophy back home to northern Italy. Yeah, I think that's supposed to be him. Listen, sculptures are hard, okay? 2008 also saw the first ever Women's VIVA World Cup. The first edition, with only 2 teams, was won by the hosts Sápmi, who beat Kurdistan over 2 legs 15-1, well and truly paying homage to the men's team's demolition job 2 years earlier. 2009 took place in northern Italy with 6 teams, 2010 took place in the island of Gozo, and by 2012, the new Federation's board reached its peak. This time, 9 teams made the journey to Erbil, the capital of the Kurdistan region in Iraq, including northern Cyprus, whose ELF Cup had become the Shelved Cup. In the new Federation board's biggest move yet, the matches were broadcast nationally on Iraq state television, and people watched it. The final, played in Erbil's Franso Hariri Stadium, drew 20,000 fans as Kurdistan beat northern Cyprus to lift the trophy on home soil. For a brief moment, it felt like the Rebel World Cup had actually broken through, a media success that showcased these underrepresented teams. And yet, in a cruel twist of fate, it was exactly this successful tournament that would sow the seeds of the new Federation board's downfall. It turns out that running a renegade World Cup can be just as messy or corrupt as the real thing. In their closest FIFA homage yet, a large sum of money earmarked for the event mysteriously vanished into thin air during the competition. Suspicions of embezzlement began to swell almost immediately, tarnishing what should have been the N.F Board's crowning moment. By early 2013, Belgian authorities started snooping around, infighting broke out, and the board's president, Christian Michaelis, resigned amid the financial show. the N.F Board looked increasingly on life support, but the dream of a non-World Cup World Cup lived on. In its place, a new organisation rose. Enter CONIFA, the Confederation of Independent Football Associations. Founded in 2013, CONIFA was headed up by Per-Anders Blind, a Swedish businessman, former player, and, despite the unfortunate surname, a former referee. Blind, who had worked with the N.F Board previously, was asked to pick up where the old federation left off, building upon the plans for the 2014 tournament, but ideally with fewer missing bank transfers. In 2014, CONIFA held its first World Football Cup, essentially a reboot of the VIVA World Cup. It took place in Östersund and featured 12 teams from 4 continents, a far cry from the 3-team mini-tournament that kicked off the new Federation Boards era. You had familiar N.F Board alumni like Occitania and Kurdistan, alongside new faces like the County of Nice. The group stage threw up some gloriously strange matchups. Darfur, represented by a team of Sudanese refugees, took on former champions Padania, while the region of Nagorno-Karabakh faced off against the Isle of Man. The 2014 CONIFA World Cup was a success. The County of Nice team won the tournament, defeating the Isle of Man in the final via penalty shootout. When the victorious Nice squad returned home, they were greeted at the airport by cheering fans, and the city's mayor even hosted a celebratory dinner for them all in the town hall. But while CONIFA was busy handing out medals and municipal receptions, the ghostly spirit of the N.F Board was not amused. Chief among them was Secretary General John Luke Kitt, who accused CONIFA of hijacking the entire project. He labelled CONIFA a group of pirates and rattled off a long list of alleged offences: stealing teams, stealing sponsors, and worst of all, stealing intellectual property, namely the concept of organising football for teams that FIFA didn't want, a concept that the N.F Board hadn't exactly patented, though I'm no lawyer. In one last flailing attempt to reclaim its title as the official body for unofficial football, the N.F Board announced its very own 2014 VIVA World Cup. But the plan unravelled almost immediately, after the prospective hosts pulled out to join CONIFA instead, and once again, the VIVA World Cup was put on ice. Meanwhile, CONIFA largely ignored the N.F Board and cracked on with hosting more tournaments. Another World Football Cup was hosted by Abkhazia in 2016. The hosts ended up winning the whole thing, and the president was so chuffed he declared the next day a national holiday. In 2018, CONIFA organised its biggest World Football Cup so far, hosted in London no less. Teams from as far as Tibet, Zimbabwe and Japan travelled to play in such hallowed grounds as Bedfont Recreation Ground, Coles Park in Haringey, and the QE2 Stadium in Enfield. Oh wait, hang on, wrong one. There we go. The final saw Northern Cyprus go toe-to-toe with Carpathia, refereed by... Hang on a minute, that can't be right. Mark Clattenburg. Blimey. Carpathia won the CONIFA World Football Cup via, you guessed it, penalty shootout, and celebrated presumably with a visit to O'Neill's and the world's oldest cash machine in Enfield town. None of this is to say CONIFA's journey has been smooth. In 2015, they planned a European Championship in the Isle of Man, only to realise that the dates clashed with the island's world-famous motorcycle TT races. Whoops. Then there's the diplomacy side of things. After all, organising tournaments for unrecognised or disputed territories can be a minefield. Tibet's inclusion has caused sponsors to withdraw due to pressure from China. Hosts Hungary were accused of denying visas to several teams for a European Championship. You've got Abkhazia and South Ossetia upsetting Georgia, Nagorno-Karabakh raising eyebrows in Azerbaijan, Cornwall beefing with Devon, and Aymara making everyone incredibly envious by having the most fabulous flag I've ever seen. Regardless of some of these flashpoints and obstacles, the spirit of CONIFA's competitions has generally been positive, attempting to unite fans through football rather than it being a conduit for geopolitical clashes to boil over. CONIFA has expanded to include 44 member teams, spanning every continent. Well, except Antarctica, though give it time and they might put together a squad. In addition to men's tournaments, they've run 2 Women's World Cups as well, both dominated by Sápmi, obviously. Meanwhile, what of the new Federations Board? Well, it's hard to say really. In May 2017, the N.F Board boldly declared its triumphant return, announcing plans for a Euro VIVA Cup and a Women's VIVA World Cup to be held in France. But this fizzled out after officials stopped replying to the N.F Board's emails. In early 2024, the N.F Board announced a mixed-gendered VIVA World Cup for 2025, but this is yet to take place. If you're interested in booking your tickets early, there's also VIVA World Cups taking place in 2026 and 2028, apparently. In the end, the N.F Board was flawed and ultimately imploded, but for a moment it gave the excluded a stage and set a blueprint of sorts for what was to come. CONIFA picked up the mantle and, despite the chaos, still carries it forward. Whether it's Kurdistan lifting the trophy in Erbil, or Matabeleland just showing up, there's something quite magic about it all, even if they do get walloped 8-0. So here's to Western Armenia, here's to the island of Gozo, here's to Heligoland, Sardinia, Mapushi and Cascadia. They kept the purest spirit of football alive. No luxury suites, no $20 pints, no Michelob Ultra Mountain Dew Zero superior player of the match. Just football, or something kinda like it.